Hi, my name is Clare and I'm the mother of 3 teenagers with FASD.
I'm Jessica, a PhD researcher specialising in educational interventions for children with FASD.
And together we are the hosts of Spotlight on FASD, the UK's first podcast dedicated to shining a spotlight on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders.
FASD is a condition caused by prenatal alcohol exposure that affects hundreds of thousands of children across the UK.
And we're here to bring these conversations out of the shadows and make sure that no one living with FASD feels alone.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Spotlight on FASD. And hi Claire.
Hello.
Hi. So this week we are going to be talking about sleep. So there is so much to say about sleep and FASD, but we are going to frame this as a day in the life of an individual with FASD, looking specifically at sleep, because we need to keep it to one episode. We could say so much about this, but
yeah,
we're
thousands of episodes about sleep. So we kind of decided that we want to do a range of episodes, day in the life episodes around different aspects. And for me, the first and most important aspect that jumps out when it comes to FASD and how it affects daily life is sleep, without a shadow of a doubt. Sleep.
It's a really common problem for individuals with FASD as well. And the angle that we want to take on this and why we're focusing on a day in the life is to highlight that people with FASD, living with FASD, don't necessarily fit that 24-hour timeline that those of us neurotypical population would normally live by and fit to. So
we've talked about this a lot, haven't we? And I think COVID and the way life looks now has really brought the whole issue to the fore, because we're generally in society, certainly in young people who are meant to be in the education system, we have a 24-hour period of time during 5 days of the week where things have got to happen in those certain times, and you've got to pretty much fit into those boxes. And if you are raising a child with FASD or a young person, and you are living that daily battle of trying to help them climb into those boxes repeatedly every day when they do not fit and their brains are not created to fit, then life is a challenge. And I think that what we've talked about quite a bit is that during this pandemic, things have been flipped on their heads. People are able to do things, or having to do things at a time and in a way that they have never before. So I'm always a one who wants to not even think outside of the box, but just smash the boxes up completely and then let them fit in the space that they are meant to fit in. And I think that I feel we've made big leaps, but it did make us think about it a lot, didn't it? And we talked about a day in the life, it was like sleep, it has to be sleep. So let's make no bones about it. We are talking lack of sleep.
Yeah.
We're talking sleep problems, not somebody who sleeps too much, or, we are talking a brain that cannot go to sleep, which is, if anyone suffers with bog standard
insomnia,
I couldn't even think of the word. I'm just going to say anemia. Insomnia, then you know how awful that is. So, I think that's, it just got me thinking of how a lack of sleep or how a disrupted sleep pattern impacts on a day, and what you then can and can't do and can and can't achieve.
Yeah. And it is all about that 24-hour timeline and highlighting that, most of us as adults who go to sleep at 11, get up at 6, we go to work at 8, have our lunch at 1, that 24-hour timeline, it just doesn't work. And not only do individuals with FASD not fit into that timeline, it makes it extremely challenging for their parents and carers, their caregivers, their families to fit into that timeline as a result of managing and supporting these sleep issues. And that's something that we want to raise awareness of here as well, which I'm sure you're going to hear through the short story that Claire's going to be sharing about what a 24-hour period would look like in her household.
Yeah, because it's kind of like I've, you know, I always want to try and I don't want to, you know, give too many direct details away about my children, but they know that I talk about this and they're very happy that I talk about this. And it's, you know, there's my days of all very, very similar, and somehow kind of I often joke about it being Groundhog Day, because sleep rules, sleep and how we are going to achieve it is in the forefront of my mind. My every waking moment is in the forefront of my mind all of the time, specifically with one of my children who suffers the worst. So I am constantly always working a couple of days in advance even. So like just the mental weight of that on a caregiver, of always looking ahead to how is that going to impact on sleep, because what will we be able to achieve what we're meant to be doing the next day because of that, and then the day after that. So I think that one of the biggest problems that I have encountered is that even sleep medication does work on an FASD brain, and even medication that, you know, you kind of assured, you know, you'll start off with kind of melatonin, and a lot of people take melatonin. You can buy melatonin over the counter. A lot of people do take that to help them sleep, and in our experience we've found that it might work for a little while, then it leaves a little bit of it also leaves a little bit of a funny feeling the next day. Like when it was described to me, it sounded like a little bit of a hangover. You can feel that you've had it. Melatonin, it can kick in at the wrong time. So sleep meds, that in our experience, that has never worked. And trying any kind of a stronger medication didn't work either, but had awful side effects. So, you know, I'm in a position now where sleep medication is not an option. So that's not an option. So I've tried everything. I have like physically exhausted a child to the point of like, you can't still be standing up. You must be about a kilo now and sleep for 9 hours. And it just, it beggars belief, the levels of tiredness. And they are tired and they want to go to sleep, but they can't do it.
It's not about not wanting to sleep or not being tired.
No,
it's simply
not
the brain just will not shut down. It just won't.
And so if you try and put yourself in that position for a minute, that's actually really anxiety inducing. So you might be absolutely ready to go to sleep, and you want to go to sleep because you really want to try and get yourself into those boxes the next day. You want to do it. You want to fit in and do, because a lot of the things are things that you really want to do. So you know, in order for you to physically be able to do those things, you need to go to sleep, and you have had your hot bath, you've had a milky drink, you've watched a little bit of TV, screens off, you've got some gentle music on, you perfect temperature, perfectly comfortable, no tags, no scratchiness, perfect sheets, cool pillow, everything is optimum. And lying there and back scratches and audio books and nothing is working, and then that's when the anxiety and panic starts to creep in. You know, and if anyone listening to this has suffered themselves from insomnia, and you start and get stressed out and start and feel a bit panicky, the worst thing you can do is to continue to lie in bed and concentrate on trying to go to sleep. So, you know, my kids have evolved over the year. They know at that point you need to get up. And so what I've learned, and the pattern that we have in our house, is that we will reattempt bedtime multiple times throughout the night. And I mean completely throughout the night, around the clock, to the next morning. And, you know, we can sometimes go 24, 25, 26 hours and without being able to fall asleep, and not for the want of trying. And I would have found that hard to believe if I wasn't living it and witnessing it with my own eyes. I would think, like, you're not trying. You if you lie down now and close your eyes, you're going to be able to go to sleep, and they just
all
can't.
those things that you would say as a mother of, yeah, no, just lie down, just close your eyes, just try again. And
it's awful, because for years and years, when I really didn't have a clue that the impact that this was having on sleep, and I would be assuring them, so they trust me, so I am assuring them, listen, I promise, if you just lie a little bit longer and try, you will go to sleep. And they don't, so then they start and disbelieve what you're saying to them. You know, I had a real issue with that with one of my children, where he went through a phase of you know, well, you know what, you said that was going to happen and it didn't happen, so you know, and he tried to come up with his own coping mechanisms, and it's a really bleak time in the middle of the night, when you know sleep isn't coming. You know you've got to be awake with them, because you don't want them to be awake on their own, and they don't want to be awake on their own. But from a parent and carer perspective, you've still got to do the next day and climb in all of those boxes.
Yeah, and there is still
when you haven't been
of an expectation on the child as well of attending school the next day. And when you consider 5 hours without
completely sleep, it's dangerous really to expect it, even 4 or 5 hours of sleep. So I have found myself in the past be like, right, well, what I'm going to start and try and do to kind of, I felt that I needed to be shown willing, because until I knew what I now know about FASD and the brain and sleep, I felt like I was really being a bit of a rubbish mum, and I just wasn't getting it right. So I would feel guilt, and I would feel total responsibility that everything was in place at school for me to get my child there. And what, you telling me you can't come because you didn't get him to sleep? Like, he just needs a stricter bedtime. And I felt like these things were never directly said to me, but well, sometimes they may have been. And so I started to think, like, you know, this is all on me. This is all on me. And then when you are not sleep deprived and you've got a little bit of clarity in your own brain, like, no, this is brain damage. This is brain damage, and this is why this is happening. And we're going through spells where it's
shut down.
Yeah, their brains do not know how to slow down towards the end of the day and rest and shut down. And I think, you know, so then you're talking like comorbid diagnosis. So along with the FASD might come, you know, diagnosis of anxiety, and so pile all of those into the equation, so that can't get to sleep and really wants to make it in for that lesson because it's the favourite lesson, and they really like the teacher and they really want to be there, and then they can't get to sleep, so they start to get really anxious and upset, maybe a bit aggressive, kind of, you know, they're up, the whole house is up. So, you know, I will, in a day, in a 24-hour period throughout the night, sometimes, like I've said, start the whole bedtime, you know, get up again, turn all the lights on. And I've learned that if I kind of go, oh, it's the middle of the night, it's 2:30 in the morning, like, no, then that's terrifying for them. Mm-hmm. It's so lonely for them, and it's awful, because and I've used this over the years, and this is what I would say to myself in my mind: if he was awake having an epileptic fit, would you say, it's 2:30 in the morning, can you not just stop that seizure, please? I need to go to sleep. I would move mountains to make him safe, to make him comfortable, to help him recover from it. And so I will, and it's a scary and a lonely place for you, is it? as a parent or a carer in the middle of the night, thinking, because straight away you think, oh, it reaches a certain point on a night and you think, that's not happening. School's not happening tomorrow now. So I need to cancel transport. I need to speak to them. This plan that we made yesterday is not going to be in place today. And you do feel, I have up until now, until very recently, I have felt this huge pressure, like the fact that they've had no sleep is not a good enough excuse to not make it into school.
Yeah.
When actually, if of course it is, it's impossible for them to do it. Yeah, you know, and they'll sometimes, you know, sleep might come at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, you are just happy that their body is shutting down and resting. But you then know, oh, what time are they going to wake up? It's going to be even more difficult to get to sleep again, and you know what lies ahead then for that next week or so of zero chance.
That's really important as well. You know, when sleep does come at 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, it's still like a typical night's sleep. It would still be, you know, 6, 7 hours, possibly 8 hours of sleep. It's just at what we as society consider a completely unacceptable time to go to bed and have your night's sleep. And all of a sudden, that 24-hour timeline that the rest of the world lives to has shifted quite significantly and will continue to shift over the next 3, 4 days, possibly even longer. Because how do we get that back to our norm?
And so I find that I spend every single day, that is one of my top priorities, is trying to, how can I influence, manage, make that sleep a little bit better, a little bit easier, and actually over it. Because when it comes to sleep hygiene, I'm like the queen of sleep hygiene. You know, I know exactly what it is that they need to be doing, and when it comes to this, and this is something that a lot of professionals really struggle with, who don't know enough about FASD. You know, you cannot treat a child or a young person with FASD when it comes to sleep the same as a child whose brain hasn't been impacted by alcohol, because it's a whole different ball game. And I think what you just said there about when they do fall asleep at this time, society deems that as really inconvenient time for them to be asleep. But I had actually a lovely example in this last week, where my middle boy is studying mechanics when he's able to, and we found a mechanics simulator, a brilliant mechanics simulator online, and he actually spent about 4.5 hours on and off throughout the night doing mechanics, real simulation of mechanics, learning the parts, what they do, where they have to fit, and you were stripping a full engine, and you could get to the end and then it wouldn't drive, and it could be one little clip and you've got to unpick everything. So he was so engrossed with that, and I kept reinforcing him and saying, because he gets so upset when he knows it's not going to happen, and he's like, I'm not going to be able to wake up for mechanics tomorrow. And so I was just like, well, that's okay, because we're doing our mechanics lesson now. So we did a mechanics lesson throughout the night. He learned himself how to start and build his very first website, and so, you know, he's on a totally different clock at that time. And in the past, I have tried to block that down at every turn and stop it, and like, no, don't do that, you need to be lying down and trying to go to sleep. And I've learned that is the absolute worst thing that can be doing. Actually, who says it has to happen between those hours? Who says that learning can't happen between those hours? Because I know as an adult, he's going to be some kind of techie working night shifts, because that just suits him perfectly, and that's what he's going to be. But now he's punished by our education system for this brain damage that doesn't allow him to go to sleep.
And that's a really, really important thing that you just said there as well, that it's not just about getting up and missing school. It's missing a lesson that he desperately wants to go to. It's something that he succeeds in. And for many of these children, especially those who are in educational placements, they have felt like they're failing and they're not achieving in those lessons. So to find something that they are good at, that makes them feel proud, that makes them feel confident that they're achieving, to then not be able to attend because your body just will not shut down at the time it needs to make it to that lesson, is heartbreaking. Completely.
Absolutely. It's devastating. And then, so, if sleep will come the next morning, and then it's like, as tired as you are, you're just so relieved that their body is resting and getting some sleep. And then, that's, and in some ways, as a mother of multiple children in this situation, I make that sound like I've got millions, there's just the 3 of them. It's like, right, okay, I know where you are for the next few hours, and you are safely asleep, so I'm just going to deal with the other 2 on no sleep. But that's something that you just totally become used to. But then I have got this nagging, horrible pain in my chest all morning until the point at which I can realistically safely wake him, because I'm not going to force him awake like I used to in the past because I thought it was the right thing to do, and to sleep deprive him consistently. So he will wake up, and then he'll kind of come to his senses. What time is it? Oh, and the look on his face, it's devastating. And he doesn't even say it now, and he's like, oh, okay. So he knows he's missed his opportunity to get in for that lesson that he really wanted to get in for. And then what then happens if you are not then micromanaging that situation, his mood will plummet. And the anxiety will really get hold, and that can cause lots of dysregulation, which is never anywhere you want to be with a teenage boy, for his sake, and so I think that I really feel like I've thinking about sleep in huge leaps just over the past 6 months, where I have really, and lockdown has played a huge role in that, because when the world stopped, and for a big chunk of time, I had no pressure on me to fit my kids into these boxes during these times. At some point, everything got 100% easier. Every aspect of our life got easier.
The world stopped, and all of society's constraints of time kind of disappeared with it. They just left, and all of a sudden, I mean, we there's plenty of people working from home and still trying to continue life as normal. But for Claire's situation, all of a sudden, that's done. 8 o'clock in the morning didn't mean anything anymore.
Absolutely.
That time of having breakfast would be when her children woke up and were ready to eat breakfast. That could have been 8 o'clock, it could have been 12 o'clock, it could have been 3 a.m.
Exactly. And I think at the minute, I've got, because of COVID, one of my kids, the school, her new school is closed, and she was given a pile of work to work through, and she is now using that as a tool to kind of bore herself to sleep. They were her words. And she needs less involvement during the night. She is a little more self-sufficient than her brother, so she'll kind of be I did these things last night, and she'll show us what she did, and that at 2 a.m, might have been doing a couple of pieces of our work, and I keep my kids. They don't know they're doing it because they're not consciously doing it. They are pushing me every day to say, why?
Yeah.
Why do I have to do it like that? Why can't I do it like this? Who says? Why? What's wrong with doing it like this? And I'm increasingly finding it so difficult to go, to come up with an answer as to why the need to do it that way.
Why can't you learn from 9 a.m. till 1 and then from 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Why can't that be the time that you spend learning? Why does it have to be 8:30 till 3? Who said that? Because it's clearly not working for this population. We know that.
And I think that, you know, sleep, when you go through cycles of sleep disruption, it then impacts on when and what they feel like eating. And then when they're not eating properly, because what I do with my kids when it comes to food, and again, this is by learning the hard way of doing it wrong, is I kind of think toddler. And, you know, you wouldn't dream of going anywhere with a toddler without snacks. Like, you're not going to let a toddler go more than a couple of hours without a couple of snacks. It's the same. And when mine have, you know, gone through the night where they don't really feel like eating anything, and there is a huge element, as they got older, you know, they maybe probably could sit and eat a meal, but they won't ask me to make that for them at 3:30 in the morning, because they feel like they shouldn't really be doing that. So I always have like trays of snacks, and I make sure that you know, all the lights on. I'll make myself iron it in the middle of the night to show that, like, this is okay. You know, I'm not. Yeah, this is okay. I'm just going to just be busy while you're awake, and that's absolutely fine. And we'll watch a little bit of YouTube, and, you know, try and normalize it, because I can only imagine how terrifying it must be. You know, I think that my biggest plea to certainly any education professionals listening to this is, sleep is often not that it's not taken seriously, but, and this may be completely in my mind, but when I have to speak to somebody at a school for any of the kids and say, I'm not going to be able to get them in today, I can't wake them up. They didn't fall asleep till a few hours ago. Maybe it is my imagination and my maternal guilt kind of kicking in, but I feel they're often thinking, are you kidding me? You can't get them in because you can't wake them up. Wake them up. Yeah. Drag them out of bed. They need to be here.
I think that misunderstanding as well can come with the fact that you have teenagers, and I know, you know, you're probably talking about the whole school experience, but specifically now it's like, oh, you know, teenage boys, of course you can't get them out of bed, all they do is sleep. No, people need to be looking at this from a lens of FASD, and that's why we're doing this. You know, people need to be aware of these problems and these challenges that these children are facing, because that is, first and foremost, it's FASD, and these are all the side effects.
I think I've worked so closely with one of the schools where I genuinely now feel, when I'm like, he got to sleep at 6:20 this morning, and then I'll straight away get back from school, okay, don't even attempt it. And that's such a weight off. Don't attempt it. Let's see what tomorrow brings. Or, you know, and I'll say, well, you know, we've been doing this during the night, and we've been doing this. And I think probably because, you know, the pressure that schools are faced with from Ofsted, and all of the hoops that they've got to jump through, and the boxes they've got to cram themselves into. I think that lockdown and remote learning has probably played a little bit of a role for them to feel they've got a bit more flexibility, and like, oh, actually that's brilliant if he's done all of that during the night. Because, you know, a few days ago I rang up and I went, yeah, I said, we're definitely not going to be making it in, but he's actually been to school all night for about 7 hours, and they were just like, good enough for us. That's good enough for us.
And that's,
so I think that's one.
Yeah, that's that message, isn't it? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What these children need.
So I think, I just kind of really want to raise awareness of sleep and the lack of it, and so and a shout out and a little like nod to the parents and the carers who are juggling life on chronic sleep deprivation. Because a lot of the time, when you are raising a child or a young person with FASD, a lot of the time you are facing the amount of sleep that you would with a baby, and normally under normal circumstances, under average circumstances, that baby period would end, and your child would gradually, at least, the warning signs should have been there with my middle boy though, because he did not sleep through the night until he was 7 for the first time, 7 years old. So and I'd also mixed into it, I do believe he's going to be an adult that requires very little sleep. You know, so that there is that mix, but I think that we really need to just kind of open the door a little bit about sleep. It is something that we will talk about on Spotlight about FASD constantly, and religiously, because it doesn't go away. And I want to really, really remove any stigma around sleep, because I do know, I think a lot of parents and carers really feel like that is their personal weakness, that they should be able to control the sleep of their child a bit better.
That's it. And it's not the case at all, because as parents and carers, you know, I'm not in that position myself, but I get it. Well, I don't get it. I can't, nobody can get it unless you're living it. But I can see as an outsider that you're not only managing their sleep pattern, you're having to adopt their sleep pattern, but you don't have the option to go to bed at 6:20 in the morning and get your 7 hours sleep, because your world is still starting at 6:20 in the morning. You still have to be getting up like the rest of us at 6:20. You've still got to go to work, you know, you've still got all these things to do.
So yeah, the aim of this Day in the Life episode was definitely for us to lift the lid about sleep. Let's start talking about it. Let it become commonplace for professionals to absolutely understand and accept that it is one of the main problems for children and young people with FASD, specifically in accessing education. So I think, you know, we want to start the conversation, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear from parents and from carers and from professionals on both sides about what your views are, what you've encountered. If there is anybody listening who has managed to find a magic way to get their FASD child to sleep, I particularly would like to hear from you. But yeah, I want to.
Stories with us. You know, encourage people, please.
And we're not making light of it. It's a really awful, serious side to it. It's crippling. Like, it is physically crippling having to live with it and deal with it and manage it. But I think that a lot of parents don't talk about it, so we want to start talking about it.
Definitely.
I think probably talked about it enough for today.
Yep. So, as always, this episode will be going out on a Friday. It's the end of the week. I don't even know what day it is. It's Friday. But this will be going out on a Friday, next Friday, on Anchor, which will take you to your podcast platform of choice. It will be on YouTube as well, as always. And please do get in touch with us via social media, follow us, contact us, questions, stories. Make it a place to say, I've not slept in 42 hours and it's killing me, because there will be people there in the same position who might just be able to offer something.
Definitely. Yeah.
So thank you again for tuning in, for listening. And if you've got this far, thank you for sharing this podcast about sleep with us. And we will see you next time.
If you're listening to this at bedtime, I hope you get some sleep.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this in the night, when you're awake, trying to help your child or young person through the night, well, I hope it gives you a little bit of strength.
Yeah.
And we will speak to you next time.